What's happening, folks? Back for another anime intro sequence reaction, which is to say, a few weeks ago, a friend of the channel, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, but the name is something like Fortasa Vointa. He suggested I do a reaction to the intro sequence to a spin-off show for Bubblegum Crisis, and I had heard of Bubblegum Crisis, but never the spin-off show, and that was enjoyable. And then for the last few weeks, he's been suggesting that I do a reaction to the intro sequence for Dragon Ball. And as I mentioned in one of my replies to those comments, Dragon Ball Z by the recently late Akira Toriyama, more on that in a moment. Dragon Ball Z I've seen in its entirety, and I was a big fan right around the time when it was originally being dubbed into English, which is like, I want to say the very early 2000s, and it was airing on Cartoon Network, and they were releasing, and it's this long ago that the releases were coming out on VHS tape, and I remember, like, I had a number of them, not like the whole series, but I had, I don't know, 10, 11 tapes, like pretty much all of the Android saga, and then all of the Cell saga, and I think right up through the Majin Buu saga at the end. And if these names mean nothing to you, no worries, but it is definitely a franchise worth checking out. But the point here is that Dragon Ball Z I was a huge fan of. Now, that was the second show in the franchise. It was preceded by Dragon Ball, which was originally a manga. And Dragon Ball, I've seen a handful of episodes in the original Japanese, but I don't know the full story. I've never seen the full run of the show. And both shows share a number of common features and most of the same main characters. So it's certainly, a universe that I know a lot about. But as I said, my main experience is with the sequel show, Dragon Ball Z. So yes, Akira Toriyama, he passed away not too long ago. A very rightly world famous manga / anime artist. And not only is he the creator of the Dragon Ball franchise, but he also designed the characters for one of my favorite games of all time, Chrono Trigger, which I've done a full playthrough of here on my YouTube. And I think those characters are incredibly memorable. And in fact, those who know that my cat is named Luca will probably be aware that Luca is a character from Chrono Trigger and one of my favorite characters ever. So yes, essentially, Akira Toriyama named my cat. Nevertheless, this is a tribute to him and to the awesome intellectual franchise that he's created, which, again, I've seen all of Dragon Ball Z. I've seen a little bit of Dragon Ball. There was a sequel show, which I think is like not canon now, Dragon Ball GT, but they've also made a number of movies in more recent years that sort of, fix some of the things that were part of the earlier stories, like retconned, I think is technically the term, but obviously, like, it's a franchise that has continued, and even though Akira Toriyama is no longer with us, I imagine that there will be future Dragon Ball movies and maybe shows going on to the future. It's just that big of an international franchise. In any case, we're going to watch the intro, or I imagine one of the intros, which I say because over the course of Dragon Ball Z, they had several different intro sequences, or at least a handful of them. But yes, we're going to watch one of the intros to the original Dragon Ball, which is called Densetsu, which means legend, and thus I'm guessing this is in the original Japanese. So let's watch it. This is the intro sequence to Dragon Ball called Densetsu.
Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball, I got it! Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball, I got it! どんな夢でも叶えるというよ
Does that meant to freeze like that? Hold on. That might have just been my computer.
Dragon Ball, I got it.
I just want to make sure that's really supposed to be happening. Like, what?
誰が仕掛けた不思議なボールよどこにあるのか魅惑の宝石遥か彼方のミステリー固く閉ざされた謎よ神の恵みが悪魔の罠か俺の心が激しく燃える Come on, let's go to find it out この手にきっと掴むまで振り向かないで Far away Come on, let's go to find it out 奇跡が心を揺さぶる夢を追いかけて Far away7つのボールに散りばめられた奇跡がここに今よみがえる Come on, dragon, just for me この胸は熱くときめく勇気を出して Far away Come on, dragon, just for me 望み叶えてほしいから夢を追いかけて Far away Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball I got it Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball I got it
Classic. So, yeah, the show shares a lot of the same main characters. As I mentioned, there's a young Goku there who's like, the main man in Dragon Ball Z, though. And I think Dragon Ball, he's one of a number of main characters. I don't think he's quite as central, and he's certainly younger. But also Bulma and Krillin and Piccolo, and, there's a number of folks who become even more central in Dragon Ball Z, and like Roshi and so on. Whereas like I think Roshi is bigger in Dragon Ball, and then in Dragon Ball Z he's kind of like occasional comic relief. Hello, Luca. But yeah, if you didn't pick up on it, and if you're not familiar with the show, the main premise is that there's these 7 Dragon Balls, which you see one of them here, and that if you can bring them all together, it summons a dragon, and I forget the dragon's name. There might even be more than one, but there's definitely like a main one, and when the dragon is summoned, you can make a wish. You can have like any wish granted, and then once that wish is granted, the Dragon Balls like shoot themselves around the world and get scattered again. And then, if you want to try to find them again, you have to go look for them, and then you can make a wish. But obviously, powerful figures in this universe want to, use the power of the dragon to get what they want. So there's a lot of fighting over the Dragon Balls. There's a lot of, competitive searching for the Dragon Balls. So that's kind of the main premise of the show, but obviously many hijinks ensue, and then, there's a question of like, what is the wish going to be once you can summon the dragon, and so on. And, I mentioned Piccolo. He's like one of the green guys there, like, the sort of big green guys. And I think in Dragon Ball, he's mostly an antagonist. And even at the beginning of Dragon Ball Z, that's sort of the case. He's sort of antagonistic toward Goku, but eventually he becomes a protagonist, and he's sort of an ally of the main characters, which happens because he ends up training Goku's son Gohan. So yeah, if you don't know the franchise, I'm sure all these statements and names are very confusing, but it's definitely worth a look. As I said, I know Dragon Ball Z much, much better than Dragon Ball, so maybe at some point I'll see if I can go through one or both of the shows over on Patreon as I do anime watch-alongs. But yeah, ultimately, shout out once again to the friend of the channel who has been requesting this. Do let me know what you think, and massive love and RIP to the rightly legendary Akira Toriyama. Peace.